All right, so today we're here with Matt Tomlins from CoverCard. So CoverCard. Matt.
CoverCard, yeah, get it right, Jack. Come on.
Matt, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, really good. Yeah, great to be here with you, Jack.
Thanks for being with us. So CoverCard, what is it?
Yeah, so we help blue-collar workers digitise their hard copy tickets and licences into an online profile and a beautifully presented document that they can then easily share with employers, colleagues, friends. And then we also have a product for employers to instantly filter incoming resumes against the ticket license and qualification requirements. We can cut out up to 90% of their time, and so it's a real efficiency saver for employers as well. So we're helping both workers and employers in the blue-collar space wherever they need those hard copy tickets and licenses that you see people carrying around and using on mining and construction sites in particular.
Right, so it's mainly mining and construction that you deal with?
Look, that's where our focus is now, but there's 3.8 million blue-collar workers across Australia that could use our product, and then obviously the related employers and recruiters. So, we're starting off in the mining and construction sector, but there's huge scope to go into other regulated industries, manufacturing, even security. If you're up in a tree, you have to have various tickets to get to work at that height, to operate the machinery to get up there, to then you can have a qualification to actually cut the tree itself. So there's heaps of stuff out there.
So you need to be qualified to cut a tree.
Well, you need to have a working at heights ticket to get up on the platform. You might need to have a ticket to operate the working at heights, like the machine, the platform.
Okay.
And then you can get a chainsaw license, which you might need depending on what job you're doing up the tree. So it's pretty crazy, mate. Like Australia's massively regulated with all of these sorts of things. So
and it's your company.
Yes, I'm a co-founder. So my business partner, John, he was the original visionary behind this idea. He's a boilermaker by trade, and he went and worked up in the mining industry, fly in, fly out, and he had literally sort of 8 or 10 of these different physical plastic cards that he needed to do his job. So including inductions to get onto the site. Then he had he's a Boilermaker trade certificate, but then he also had a working at heights, a confined space, just multiple other tickets and cards. And the first time I met him, he pulled out his wallet and just started shelling these things on the table and said, there's got to be a better way to do this. So,
yeah, right. So, and you had to physically have them on him?
Yes.
Wow. All the time when he's working?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And an employer, the most important thing, if John was getting recruited, was whether or not he had the right cards and if they were valid.
Right. So is this a space you think you would have got into had you have not have met John?
It's an interesting one. So I used to work in management consulting in the mining sector, and I'd seen that there was opportunities to apply digital and technology to make things better and make things a lot more efficient. I hadn't quite landed on what it was though, but I also knew that there was a lot of opportunity in, I guess employment and like labour hire and things like that. Like, the wages were very high, and there was, you might have a recruitment company as well as a labour hire company and then an end employer. So there was a lot of sort of different players and contractors involved. So I hadn't really nailed exactly what or how we would do it. But when I met John, it was sort of helped steer us in a really good direction. And then John was very much focused on that, helping the workers, and then we had to think through, how do you put a business model around that, and and that comes through helping employers as well as workers with all those physical cards.
Gotcha. So, and you were always meant for entrepreneurship, were you? I
don't know. I've always had lots of business ideas. Lots of different things I've tried, but without a lot of success. I'm not. I guess I don't see myself as a tech. Like, obviously, CoverCard's a tech business. I see myself as looking for opportunities and then solving them, be that via technology or in other ways. I'm not a tech for tech's sake sort of person, so I'm a non-tech founder of the business, which is sort of one of the challenges I think we'll probably touch on today. Look, I've always looked at the world and thought, hang on, could that be done better, or what about this, or what about that? Even back when I was working for other people, I was very much, why don't we think of doing this, or could we do that? And I guess it evolved into, eventually into CoverCard. But there's a few other things I did before that, I guess. So can fill you in on those if you like.
Yeah, what were they?
Yeah, so the first thing I did, I was 19, living in the UK, and I was playing cricket over there, and I met a bunch of really entrepreneurial people. One of which basically bought CDs from like Sanity and old like CDs that weren't selling in the shops anymore. Took the labels off and then had a giant warehouse and sold them to market traders. So market traders would come in, buy these CDs at a really like low cost because the guy I knew had got them even lower cost, and then the market traders would take them and sell them at the various markets. That was in Leeds in the north of England.
Oh, right.
And so I worked there for a bit, and I was sort of like, oh man, this is pretty interesting stuff. And
is that the first time it sort of opened your mind to this world, that incident, or?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I mean, when I reflect back on it, when I was 19 at that time, and I think even younger than that, I had business ideas, but I hadn't sort of crystallized that it was what I really wanted to do. But having said that, then I came back to Australia and I studied business. So it got me, I guess, interested in studying business. But then I worked for other people and more traditional career path for a while before CoverCard. So
right.
Yeah.
All right, we'll touch on that in a minute. But firstly, were you a good cricketer?
Oh, I wasn't bad. No one likes to blow their trumpet too hard, do they? But look, I always wanted to be better. Let's put it that way. Like as a kid growing up, cricket was my main thing. I really wanted to play for Australia as a child. I'd tell anyone that would listen to me that was the case. I played some first grade cricket in Perth, and meant that I played with. So I played a couple of games with Justin Langer, who's obviously an Australian legend, and a bunch of other people that played professionally. I spent 6 months playing it in the UK semi-professionally. So. I wasn't bad at it. I always wanted to be a lot better, but it wasn't good enough to make it, make a more of a career out of it, like I would have loved to when I was younger. But yeah, I always enjoyed it, and reached a reasonable level, Jack. But not a. Unfortunately, you're not interviewing me about my 100 games of Test cricket or something, which would have been a lot better. So.
Right, but I am interested if there was like a time when you had to decide, look, am I going to keep pursuing cricket, or am I going to do something else? Like, did that come to a head at some point, or?
Look, so when I went to, I guess that first time I went to England as a 19-year-old, that was a bit of a transition point for me, because I'd come out of school, I hadn't studied anything, I'd like worked in a supermarket sort of casually, and I hadn't done, the sort of things that people expect, but I always was in my mind, I'm playing cricket, I want to get better at that. Played in the UK, and I guess at 19, 20, you kind of go, hang on, it's a big dream, but you're not going to get there, and meeting these entrepreneurial people there in the UK, and got me really interested in business, and I still kept playing cricket and still wanted to keep getting better at it. But that was probably a tipping point when I thought, I better go and get some, education. That 20 hours a week stacking shelves in the supermarket's not going to hold me in good stead in the long term. So so that was a tipping point for me. That 2001. So we're going back a little while now, but that was a time that I went, let's get into some business stuff instead of just the cricket. Yeah. Very
interesting. I mean, I had not a similar experience. I don't think I got as far as you, but I was always going to make it in a band, and it's cool. Just, you get to a point where you realize just the enormity of what you're trying to achieve, and like it's not all of a sudden you got to go, well, I need to really, really, really put in now for this to happen, or it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's just such a select few to get to that absolute top level. Like, I mean, in cricket, you reach a level that, you might have been in the top 500 or 1,000 players, probably more like 1,000, but, but you need to be in that, in the top 100 or the top 50 to really make money out of it and support it as a career. And it's probably hardest, I probably bailed out. I kept playing, but I sort of readjusted my expectations. But it's that level just below being a professional, be it a musician or sportsman or whatever. That there's a big graveyard of people there.
Yeah.
That it's bloody hard. It's really hard work to tip that over into that professional, making a living out of it.
And they're good. That graveyard you talk about, they're all good.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're not chumps at that point.
Well, that's why I told you I wasn't bad at cricket, Jack. And I'm sure you weren't a bad musician. You might have to strum us a tune another time. But
yeah, I'll do that one day. Yeah, but like it's just interesting for me that to hear when people chose one path or another because yeah, as you said, there's so little room at the top to really make it in the, as a sportsman or maybe a musician. Or
look, there's a big chunk of luck involved as well, and timing, and there's all sorts of genetics assist you in a lot of sports. You look at people in basketball or AFL and things like that. If you're not, if you're 5'5" like I am, cricket was probably one of the few I could have had a crack at it. You know what I mean? So,
right, fair enough. So, do you think that entrepreneurship is any? Do you think that's a better bet to make? I suppose you can do it longer.
Yeah, you can definitely persist. Like, I mean, I guess in sport, and there are exceptions. There's some sports you can play for a long time, but I guess your window is shorter. Whereas, I think in entrepreneurship, as long as you're continually learning and going back and having another crack at it, I think you get there in the end. I think entrepreneurship's all about continually problem solving. So whether that's the business that you're currently in or you go into a different business, but you're constantly solving problems, and the entrepreneurship journey ends kind of when you go, it's just got too hard for me and I'm stopping now. So if you continue to, there's always a way around every obstacle, but some of them are really, really, really hard to get around. And, persistence is really the thing. And you can persist a lot longer in entrepreneurship than you can as a cricket player, I guess. So.
Right. Yeah. All right. So on this podcast, we do talk about, you've kind of moved into it perfectly for me, but we do talk about the tough things that you've had to get through in your career or in your entrepreneurial journey. So, and being a non-tech founder, I suppose that would be one of them for you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's probably the number one. Many people say don't go into a startup if you're a non-tech founder, but to me, it just means that you have to work even harder, and it's just another challenge to overcome. So, so John that I mentioned earlier is also a non-tech. He's not a developer. So. Yeah, so we spend a lot of time networking and looking to find a person or people that we could work with in the early stages of CoverCard, with sort of limited success, I guess. And we had one false start with initially with a person that was keen to get involved, but they were working and they had other commitments, and it was, and at that point in time, we could have just gone, man, we'd probably spent 6 to 12 months, like,
oh, really?
Not on I was still working, I was still earning an income, but we'd spent a bunch of time by that, in terms of defining the concept, what we were going to do, then networking, and then having that initial person fall over. But it was also a bit of an eye opener to me that, you can't rely on anyone else to do stuff. So what we did, so I went ahead then and built the first version of our site myself without coding. So it was, really simple, but it was a Squarespace site with a thing called Logiforms, which was embedded in the Squarespace, and that meant that we could capture worker qualifications, and it could also generate like a really nice, neat representation of that for the workers to use to apply for jobs. We had no employer functionality, had nothing like that, but we were able to put that out in the market, and particularly through John's networks on the ground, we got some early workers, job seekers using CoverCard, and that that gave us some reasonable validation that we thought it could work, but also some really good feedback on the product. But it also helped us then get other people involved with our project, because John and I weren't two guys with an idea going to startup events.
We've all met those guys.
Well, I was one. But now the thing I tell everybody is just do it yourself, right? Or if you can't find a tech person initially, there's so many tools out there to build the basic version of what you want yourself, and just be really clear. I'll scale it back. What's the most important? It's even like a pre-MVP, really. It's like, what's the absolute minimum thing, and what can you build yourself using the various tools that are out there? And so we went through that process, and then we were then able to get another developer come on board with us. But unfortunately, that after 3 months, that also fell over. He's a great guy, but he had a young family and just come back from overseas, and just unfortunately didn't work out. So another important one is make sure you're careful with how you vest your equity in your business as well. So you don't give people equity up front, which of course we vested, so we were cool, but it's an easy thing to say, oh, this is the perfect person to work with me, and
here's 20%.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. And you basically can blow up your business like that, right? So
right.
Fortunately we didn't do that. So I'd read enough stuff at that stage. And then where do we go from there? And then we ended up pitching to a developer investor house down in Melbourne, where again, because we'd done the work to build something basic myself, and we could show we had these users on the platform, and we had feedback that it helped get them over the line in working with us. And then they've been pretty good, and we've that version is now been in the market for a while, and our traction continues to grow, and now we've got an internal person, so we've transitioned from that third party into having our own internal person. And again, that person, it's a lot easier to attract that person when you can go, hey, look at this startup that we've got with traction, and keep it real, haven't shot the lights out yet, but we can show tangible evidence, and this is the process that we've gone down and the hard work that we've done. So you're getting on board with people that are going to give this a real crack and see where it takes us. So just I guess the moral for me has just been don't rely on anyone else, make stuff happen, and if you do, you'll attract people to you that can help you take that further than you even thought.
Yeah, right. So talk to me about that decision to do it yourself, because I think with a lot of things sometimes we never think to do that. If something's outside your skill set, you're like, oh well, can't do it then.
Look, it's a natural thing to think like that, but honestly, with the plethora of tools out there, you just it sounds so basic. You jump on Google and say, I want to create a basic website that grabs one set of data and compares it to another set of data, and you don't I'm not even talking about WordPress, using WordPress. I'm talking about even simpler stuff than that, and it's out there, it can be done, but it's not going to be easy. I think everybody dreams of I've got this great concept and this idea, and I'll just tell it to a developer and then it'll be built, and then we'll get people to use it, and then away we go. But it rarely works like that. But if you really want to do it, don't let anything stop you. Make it happen. It's a bit of a cliche, but there's tools and there's everything out there, and there's enough education and free information. There's events and all sorts of stuff you can get involved with.
Yeah, but you're saying that you didn't come to that conclusion for quite a while though, right? It took you a few months to go, all right, well maybe I'll just do it for now, But and I've talked to people, and sometimes sometimes when I'm trying to stir people up a bit, and I know they're never going to do it, I'll say, oh no, I don't think any developer will jump on at this stage. Just build it yourself, and then look at that later. And sometimes, depending on where they're at with their education in the space, I think their brain explodes, or
a lot of people just say, "Oh, I can't code, or I can't do this," but you really can't think like that, and if you're not prepared to be persist through a challenge like that, then how are you going to that's the first hurdle to jump in your startup. There's plenty more hurdles that are going to come if you don't get around that one. You're not going to be the sort of person, if you think it's just too hard, then don't start. Just give it a miss and do something else.
But it did take. Is it fair to say it took a while for it to occur to you? Let's just do it, or I'll figure out how to do it.
I just decided that I was going to do it, and I guess it coincided with discovering some more tools that were online and things that were about. But when it fell over with that first internal person, I was quite frustrated by that, and I just it was the light bulb basically went off that said, man, you got to, if you think this is a good idea, just do it, right? And that's the thing. As I keep saying, there's so many different online software as a service programs that are extremely simple and easy to use. You've just got to Google around and find them. They'll cost you it might cost you $20 a month or something, but you can build your product for $100 versus someone that versus spending a couple of $100,000 to get it, professionally done, and you might never get a user. I mean, yes.
So you also at this stage, I'm assuming you were at the part in your education where you felt like you knew about validation, you thought that was important, and it's not like if you haven't been in the in this game before and you haven't talked to people in the game, I think people can waste a lot of time building something that no one will ever touch.
It's totally. There's if you build it, they will come is not what happens. The more you can spend time doing it yourself and getting really tangible feedback, because there's such a difference between going to talk to 20 tradesmen and saying, hey, this is what we're thinking of doing, because they'll all say, oh, that's great, that'll be useful, versus actually having something to send them and say, hey, here it is, use it and tell us what you think. And half the time they're not gonna, they don't use it anyway, right? But the other half, you get some good feedback, and you've got to validate your idea as early as possible. It's like having a big long list of assumptions, and basically you've just got to work through them and just tick them off. And one of the best ways to do that is to over a weekend you can build your own thing really, really simply, or even in a day, like just put it out there and get that feedback, get that ball rolling. It's like rolling stone down a hill, gathering moss. You've just got to push that thing down and just get it going, right? And then things come from that, and it grows. It can start to take on a life of its own to some extent after that.
And you never thought about developing it, staying in the developing side of it, like in one of you guys taking on that role?
Look, I mean, I'm also pragmatic to know where my skill set best lies.
Right.
And my background is much more in the business side of things. So in consulting and strategy and understanding business problems and planning, and so that comes through in pitch. It helps me pitch and understanding different ways that different future revenue opportunities and all sorts of stuff like that. So that's more my my skill set, I guess. And but I guess you can't use that as an excuse to say I'm not doing anything else. Like, I'm continually learning. Like, we just every day. Like, it's employing someone, there's a whole process with stuff there. Like, it's just every single day you're learning something new, and you have to be really prepared to get out of your comfort zone, I think, is the biggest thing for me. Know what your core skills are, know what you what you need to get help with, but as much as you can troubleshoot and do things yourself within reason, because you don't want to burn, or you don't want to spend a week doing something that someone else can do in 5 minutes. But the more that you can learn a bit about a lot of different things, the more you can also call people out if they're not, if they're pulling the wool over your eyes as well, which I think may have happened to me. I wouldn't know, I guess, but
twice,
that definitely happens in the startup space for non-tech founders, where they just don't have that awareness.
And you had an MBA, right? So the listeners are thinking, here he goes again. But are they? Was it worthwhile for you? Was that something that you're happy you did?
Yeah. Look, I probably don't follow the startup thing here. I found it quite useful.
Right.
I think, particularly the networks that you make out of that sort of a thing.
Sure.
Of course you can do all the stuff online, and it's free, right? But I found it pretty useful with the contacts I made out of it. I think some of the stuff around business strategy and the planning and things like that are quite useful. I think where people who do an MBA go wrong is they just think, oh, I've done an MBA now, that's my ticket to success, and it's not. It's still about what you can actually achieve and what you can do. I don't think you certainly don't need any of that to build a startup, but I think there can be some value in I wouldn't say to people, if you've done one, don't do a startup, because you can still draw on bits of those skills, and particularly if you network well at an MBA, there's a whole bunch of potential clients and networks into other businesses that can really help you as well. If you do it face to face, if you do it online, probably not. But
right, yeah. Well, I have heard that a few times, so obviously that sounds like a valid point. My skepticism comes in with you can't do that networking anyway, and that stuff that you can see online, you can't do that anyway without the 30 grand price tag attached or whatever it costs now. I don't even know.
Probably even more than that now.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So but I mean, I'm someone who's always bashing formal education when it comes to business. So I'm a little cynical. But you think, like, I mean, it is expensive though, right?
Yep. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Oh, absolutely, it's expensive, and and it's not for everyone. It really depends what you like. I really would encourage people to think, take a step back and go, what is it that you want to do? And perhaps in hindsight, for where I was at the time and the work I was doing, like, it was a really good thing to do, and I don't regret it. I was one of the youngest people in my class to do it, which just meant that you're networking with people, quite a number of levels and years above me. But yeah, there's no substitute for actually getting out there and taking the risk and doing it. But you also don't want to be, don't want to run around like a chook with your head cut off and just plow into stuff. You do need to give things a bit of thought, and some of that education here and there might help you with that, perhaps, Jack. So,
all right, you've convinced me, mate.
I don't think I have.
Anyway, all right. So I'll be interested to hear about your thoughts on the networking and whatnot. People like me, I suppose, a bit more introverted. I mean, I've had 3 sales meetings today, and I just feel like I have. I don't know. It's a very strenuous sort of process for me, Like
it takes it out of you. I'm more of an introvert as well. I actually think about, if I'm going into, like, even this podcast, it's like, you're putting on your bit of your. A university person told me, put on your Superman coat when you're going up to present, and it's the same when I'm pitching. It's like, it doesn't really matter what you're thinking beforehand, and but just when you're on stage, put on that Superman cape and away you go, right? Like you're on. But yeah, I mean, 3 in a day can be quite draining. So yeah, you do need to manage it, manage your energy and manage your focus. Which I'm sure you do. So.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, like, it's just sort of like, I mean, I don't even think that's a lot for a day. Three, people have.
Yeah,
6
it
or 7
depends
in a day,
how in front of people you are, I guess, and how it plays out. But yeah, look, it's but again, it's like if the job that you're doing requires you to do that, you just got to get on and make it and do it, right?
Yeah.
So
and that's your approach, like, by the sounds, like, because if you're slightly introverted too, I mean, I'm just wondering, because you can do the MBA, you can do the networking side. There's the opportunity to do it, but if you I mean, like, I think of people like me who would be like, I might be in a position to network, but would I do any good at it is another question.
Look, it's just sort of stepping off the end of the the end of the plank and kind of stepping off the edge of the cliff and see what happens. I mean, when I was younger, I was extremely introverted through high school and after school and stuff. So, but I guess it was a bit of a mind over matter thing that, if you're gonna do well in business, it really helps if you can build some networks and of course. If you're gonna do it, and the more you do it, the better, the more comfortable I think you get at it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I have my on days, my off days with it. I mean, I wrote a LinkedIn post a little while ago. I don't know, it's probably my best performing post for some reason. Cool. I wasn't expecting to be, but it was about networking for introverts. Okay. And I'm so... the way I approach it is I'm so strategic that I will. I said one thing I found is if someone's at the bar or somewhere where you can, or maybe picking up food or whatever, and they're on their own, I kind of go up and stand next to them, and I'll be ordering my drink or whatever, and then I can. I strike up a conversation that way, because I'm always worried at events that I'm going to be interrupting.
Yes.
I feel kind of. It's difficult for me to go up and talk to someone that I don't. Yeah. Don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think I guess everybody's I guess you got to remind yourself people are in a similar boat. But I mean, I definitely agree with you about if there's a nice neat segue that you can I don't know, are they wearing a footy jumper or whatever, like just bring something into the conversation rather than just hi, I'm Matt or I'm Jack or whoever. The more you can sort of leverage off something that's going on, I think that probably makes it easier. So,
Do you like the word networking?
Look, it's probably got a lot of bad connotations as well, doesn't it? Look, maybe there needs to be a better word for it. But I think it's just about being authentic. Like I'm a massive believer in you just be yourself and keep it real, and then people, you do need to put on a bit of a cape or a coat when you're presenting or you're in front of people, but that's just to give you the confidence to do it. It's still actually, you still be yourself, and you still come with your own, your own foibles, or your own, you make your own dad jokes or whatever it is, right? Just because the more you're comfortable with that, the easier it becomes to, comfortable in your own skin. You can communicate better with other people, I think, and people like authenticity. Like people buy into that. Like if you keep it real, then people go, Matt's got some of the same problems I've got, or whatever. Like especially in the startup space, like we're all problem solving all the time, and we've all got different challenges that we have to get through. So
right. Okay, cool. So speaking about those challenges, what else have you got for us?
Well, look, the other thing I could run through a bit is a mentoring experience we had, and I guess mentoring is another one that in the startup world everybody says you need mentors, and you know how important they are, and I'm not going to bag that completely, but I think you do need a network of people around to help you. Like I would completely agree with that. But it's a fallacy to think one mentor can tell you what to do and to drive your business forward. But we had again, it was in my my earlier days with CoverCard, and it was probably a bit of a trigger to just decide to make things, just like don't screw everyone else. Let's just do stuff to make it do it, because So I'll give you more of the story, Jack. So I was at a point where we had got our planning in place. I think we might have had the fallover with the first developer at that point, and I was like, man, how do we get this? Where do we take this? How do we get this happening? And so down in Melbourne, I approached a bunch, probably about eight to 10 different sort of people that I thought could really help mentor us. I'd read the stuff that mentors are what you needed in the startup world. Ended up spending quite a lot of time with one particular mentor, and there was, like in hindsight, there was some massive red flags about how that played out. We had probably 4 or 5 meetings that would stretch 5-6 hours. Like it was just spending a lot of time. And
was that a red flag?
It should have been.
Okay.
I guess again, when you're early in your journey, like I was flattered.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, this is like a person that's supposedly can be hard to get to, and they're spending all this time with me. Our business must be a good idea, and they're going to help solve the technical problems, which was part of the discussion. And I was also conscious of that they, in the beginning, there was no formal arrangement in place, and so we were spending more and more time together. They started doing some stuff with some data that we had, and I was saying, hang on, what do you want? We need to put something in place here, and they're like, oh no, let's work together a bit more, and again, you're still sort of like, oh, this person's working with us, and eventually when we finally got to have that proper conversation about that, they wanted to be an equal partner in the business with John and I, and that wasn't what we had approached them for. They weren't actually able to solve our technical, our developer issue. They then put forward a proposal where we, this is pretty raw, the 3 of us would own 1 share each, and then we'd have deliverables, and then we would earn more equity. But of course, the potential there is that you lose your business overnight, man.
Yeah.
Like, so I didn't know who she thought. Maybe some people would just go with it because that's who they were. But I'm like, whoa, hang on,
Yeah.
And so we had to, it ended up being, we ended up having to part ways with that person, and then they got in touch with John and suggested that John and they could do the business, I guess better than I could. And
wow, that hurts.
Yep. And fortunately, John and I are pretty pretty close, pretty thick by that stage. So we sort of stopped stopped answering any emails or anything, and kind of cut it. But I mean, again, that was like, I think it was, in fact, it was not long after that I actually built, or I think it was about around that time I started building that own version, like our own version. So I guess those two stories come together there, where it was like, man, like, it's good validation that this person wants to be involved and wants to own a third of this business, or even more if they wanted, if their secondary proposition had got up.
Yeah.
So man, like, don't waste any more time. Whatever you can do, you've got to do it. And and I guess like maybe now, we have people around that help us a bit with our business, but I don't, like as a one-to-one mentor, I don't have one of those. So I don't know if I've been sort of scarred by that experience. But I guess I'm a whole lot more wary now about getting into those sorts of things. And I always I look, help and assistance, and I've got a reasonable network of people I can call on for different things. But I really strongly believe, as the founder of the business, as the owner of the business, like, the buck stops with you. It's on you to make it happen or not make it happen, and whether it succeeds or fails, you've got to own it. And that's and I think it's so easy to say, oh, my mentor said this or whatever. Like, take advice, but make your own decisions and live or die by them.
Wow, that's really interesting. So you think that some people basically use a mentor to delegate responsibility? Almost.
Look, I've seen it happen a few times. I think it's easy to shirk the hard decisions sometimes. And again, probably more inexperienced people in the startup world can fall into that. Like, it's you've got to make hard decisions sometimes, or have hard conversations with people, and that's you can't outsource that as much as it'd be good sometimes. So
yeah, right, okay. Well, that's given me a lot that I want to ask about. Do you think this person had this type of arrangement in mind the whole time when they first? I mean, those 4 to 6 hour meetings, that is a lot of. If someone's in a powerful position, that's a lot of their time that they're.
Probably, yeah. I think like the first one, it felt very it was very organic. It was like they really liked what we were doing, and then we spent more time, and then we really got into it. Look, I certainly think probably from that first meeting, or after that first meeting, I think in hindsight perhaps there was a strategy or an intention to to get as much involved as possible, I suppose. But it's hard to say without knowing exactly what they were thinking.
And with this relationship, was it because I'm always skeptical of calling someone a mentor. So I'm a little bit like you in the sense that I've got a lot of people I could call, and I'm not a tech startup founder or anything, but in business, there's people I can call who I know have certain expertise or whatever, or they're friends or whatever, and I'd do the same for them, obviously, if they had something they wanted to kind of flesh out. I would definitely, I suppose they are kind of mentors in some way, but I would never refer them as a mentor.
No, so the people that help me, I don't refer to them as mentors. We, like you say, we're more friends and colleagues, or we're there to help each other where we can. But I mean, mentor has, I don't know, we talked about the connotation of the word networking earlier.
Yeah.
So I'm probably more up with that one. Whereas mentors, I'm like, always listen to people, but then make your own decision.
And sometimes in this space, I think we're in it to try and do something different, but then we can get so dogmatic with what is the lexicon or the expected way of doing things within the space. So we get out of it because we don't want to conform, but then we kind of conform.
I actually couldn't agree more with you on that. Like, there's certain tools and things in the startup world that, like, everyone, like, if you don't use it, people are like, oh, what, why aren't you using that? And it's like, well, this is other things more useful, more practical for us. So it is very easy to, drink the same Kool-Aid as everybody else in the startup world. And so it is quite tribal, which I mean, some of the things are fantastic, and many things are correct, and that's great. But I think sometimes people don't, such and such big name said it, so therefore it must be right. and like actually think about it, how it applies to your business or your situation. Things like fail fast is such an interesting one where, I get it. Like if it's not going to work, you want to know quickly, but also, the value of being more of a cockroach these days can be quite a good thing, because if you can hang in your business longer, you have more time to actually understand what it is, to find your product market fit. Whereas if you raise $500,000 and burn it in 3 months, and does that help anyone? You know what I mean? So it can take time and iterations of products to actually find something that will work. And if you fail fast, do you persist enough as well, perhaps? And that's a really fine line to know when to actually bail out of something as well, right? There's no easy answer on that, but I just think there's a bunch of things like that are kind of good in theory, but when you're at the coalface of actually doing one of these things, you got to think about it. Does it actually apply to you?
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah. And the last episode I had with Paul Bennett, CEO of Spaceship, and he was, I wouldn't say, he just sort of challenged the whole ideas a terrible or a shit execution's priceless type mentality, which was an interesting experience for me, because I realized how I didn't really challenge that. I was like, yeah, of course. And then he kind of really broke down that, that ideas still do matter, and IP does matter, and a few things that was just an interesting experience to have, to go, well, okay, I'm almost religious about some of this stuff. That was kind of good for me to get that shot.
I mean, look, they've got to come together, right? I mean, if you've got a shit idea and you execute it really well, what's the point? So it's a combination of the two things. But I think execution is a must.
Of course,
but you want to execute on something that's worth executing on. I mean.
I think the point though is that we have these kind of mantras that we say. So, but I mean, it's kind of a broad thing, like a fail fast. That's quite, doesn't really tell you a lot, right?
No,
just if you just say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's so many. This is the thing again about not necessarily following all the mantras and the rules that are out there, because every single startup by definition is a different business. Some are similar to others, of course, but you're pioneering, you're doing something completely new. So, however you go about doing it is not going to be exactly the same as the way anyone else has ever done it. So, innovation just requires a new way of doing it. There's no template. You can't, of course some of the stuff's useful, but you make your own path on how you go about doing it. Let me learn from others, but again, that's that. Take responsibility and own it. So,
do you have any? Have you developed any uncommon or uncommon views around business that maybe a lot of people would disagree with you on?
Oh, it's a bit of a curly one. You didn't ask me that one beforehand. Jeez. Look, I mean, I suppose I'm repeating myself. So the mentors, the fail fast, I don't really buy into those. Yeah, look, nothing else comes to mind, Jack.
That's right, yeah.
But,
cool. All right. Well, what about? And I ask this every podcast, but what's your relationship like with self-doubt?
I would say I definitely suffer from self-doubt. I think everybody does. I mean, I think it's the one thing I do buy into is the imposter syndrome concept, big time. So, but we're all imposters, right? We're all out here trying to do the best at what we're doing, and I think that's where your self-doubt, you just have to realize that everybody else is probably having that exact same self-doubt as you are. And it's like the batsman and the bowler in the cricket game, right? Like, you can be nervous as the batsman. I was more of a batsman. You can probably tell I don't look like a fast bowler. I got all my teeth, and
right.
Like the bowler's going to be nervous as well, right? That's a one-on-one head-to-head battle between a bowler and a batsman in a cricket game. And, everyone that you meet is going to be, they live in their own head and their own mind, and they're analysing things in their own way, and they've got their own insecurities and their doubts. And, we're no different to anyone else in that. And, you can't, I guess it's important not to be controlled, or I try not to be controlled anymore by that emotion, or that, feel it, but just do what you want to do anyway, and, take the time to reflect back on it on things afterwards and how you could do them better. But try to take as much as you can, take that emotion out of it, and limit that self-doubt as much as you can.
And that cricket analogy is an interesting one that you put out. Do you think, I'd be interested, I think this applies to business as well, but like in cricket, we were talking about that top 1,000 or top 500 people before. Do you think the separator for them is just that ability to, just the psychology, I suppose?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, pretty much. Again, like there's a few exceptionally physically talented players, but I used to train. I would train at Scarborough Cricket Club in WA, and you'd have Justin Langer in one cricket net, and you'd have like an A grade or even a second grade player in the second cricket net. And if you didn't know them, you wouldn't know that one was an Australian player and one was a first or second grade player. Like, he's a classic example of mental strength. Justin Langer. Yep. It's mindset is mind over matter. I think is really, really important. And I guess, again, not in that sort of traditional way of like, oh, I'm the greatest and being arrogant. It's more just like a self, within yourself that you're just gonna keep moving forward, whatever obstacle comes in front of you. And it's also a bit about what you're talking about before about introverts. It's about knowing those key moments and then like stepping up at that moment. And then, if that's only your 3 sales meetings in your day, or your 10-minute, your 5-minute pitch, or whatever it is, the rest of the time, don't expect too much of yourself, but just know that the key, like it's a game of tennis, right? What are the key moments that you've got to win in that tennis match? And so, focus your energy and your efforts in those places.
And I think it was Ian Healy, who was an Australian wicketkeeper, who's the one who said that he was a big believer in your concentration. You have to really turn off as soon as that ball's bowled, and then like to preserve that, I suppose, your cognitive.
That's 100%. So a cricketing sports psychologist will tell you exactly that, Jack. Right. So if you're the batsman or the wicketkeeper, the cricket ball coming at you, if you're facing a really fast bowl, you got a third of a second. Yeah. From the moment that ball is let go to actually reacting, hitting it, moving, and hitting it.
That's ridiculous.
Maybe it's 40 seconds for each ball, but only a third of a second actually matters out of that 40 seconds. So it's like, you need to be so keyed in at that moment. And that's the one thing that would separate those top cricket players from the rest of us, that, again, and then self-doubt comes into it again, because you're sort of consumed by, you got that other 39 and 2/3 of a second in between to think about stuff, right?
Well, I suppose even the most aggressive salesperson, who, if they're pounding the phone all day, by pounding if you actually broke down how much time they're actually on the phone, that would be an interesting stat to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, they've got to be on their game at that moment when they're on the phone, and that's what counts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know how many minutes. It sounds like a study or something.
I'm going to find that out now.
Yeah, cool. Well, there must be to be out there. Just Google it, Jack. You'll be right.
Do you So you said you're a bit introverted, but do you do sales, like cold calls, that type of thing?
A bit. Yep. We do. But again, I guess this is a bit of an example of understanding your strengths and your weaknesses. So we've now got a process where we identify potential clients, and so I was doing the cold calling initially, but now we've got a person in our team that we've brought in to do that, because they're better at it than I am, and it means that like I can now focus on other things. But we've basically been able to set up and I think as the founder, like you need to like set up that system, which was what what we've done, and then you can then hand that task off to somebody else who, you know, is better at it than you are, and then you can move on. You know, what's the next piece of your puzzle in terms of growing your business or whatever it is you're trying to do, and then, you know, you then go and, you know, now we're like, okay, you know, what's the next thing on our list that the next strategy we want to have a crack at to grow our business. And, you know, many of them don't work, but you just you know, you take that small bet and you find out if it works, then you know that you can scale that. So we've got one person doing this now. If it continues to work, you know, we can add a second person, or, you know, and we've tried you know, talking about some challenges. You know, we tried a bunch of social media advertising aimed at employers recently that just didn't really hit the targets that we were looking for it to do. But we've found that this calling approach is a much better way of delivering return. So again, it's like all about, you know, ROI, man. Like, you know, like I can spend $5,000 on advertising versus having someone in the team there for, like, I don't know, what's that, 4 or 5 weeks or whatever. And, you know, that's a lot better. We're getting a lot better return from that than the paid advertising, for example, at the moment. So,
yeah, cool. So I'd be interested then, you kind of touched on it a little bit before, but how do you think about where do you spend your time during a week? Because, I mean, I suppose as the founder, you're burdened with the choice. I mean, like you from the outside, it's like, oh, great, freedom, look at all the freedom. But you're burdened with, well, where do I spend my time?
Like, you're completely right. Like, you can spend a whole bunch of time on something that, you know, doesn't give you any return at all. So I try to pick like one priority per week that, even if I get pulled in lots of other directions, we deliver that. So whether that's, you know, so this week we've got a new person starting next week, and we wanted to make sure that we had everything, you know, from a legal and contractual and everything in, you know, HR side of things that had to be done. But, you know, there's still clients that I'm dealing with and partnership opportunities and stuff. So, you know, I think you just need to, I almost don't think you do it day by day. Like, to me, it's almost like, in a week, what's the number one thing? And it needs to be a big chunky thing. It's not like, you know, send one email. It's like we've got one core focus for this week, and we must push towards that and deliver that. And then, you know, the rest of the time you might have your second, third and fourth things, but you've got that one thing, because it's so easy to get pulled in so many different directions every single day, that you know, you can end up just treading water basically, and not actually getting there on anything.
Right.
But I mean, even probably more than that, like, you know, and that prioritization process, certainly for us, is about how do we get more users onto our system. So it's we need to be laser like on that, right? So, like, you know, I can go on podcasts. Is that going to get me more users? So I'm doing you a favour here, Jack. You know, is that going to get me more users? I don't know. Probably not. But the point is, I like to give back and help and, like, support the community and stuff too. But you know, it really does come down to, you know, will that task get us more users or not? So if someone in our team says, oh, you know, could we, you know, why don't we change this field on the website, or, you know, and it's like, oh, well, that's going to take like 5 hours. Okay, so how many extra users are we going to get if we do that? Probably none. Well, okay, don't do it then.
Yeah, sure.
You know, we talk like someone said once, oh, we should have stubby holders with CoverCard written on them, because, you know, we're in the tradie space. I'm like, yeah, okay. How many, you know, is that going to convert? It's you know, you got to get them, you got to get them made, you got to get them designed, and then you got to get them in, and you got to get them out to people, and then, you know, how are you going to track how many, you know, like, it's just like, nice idea, but no, is that really going to deliver us more users?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So it's comes down to that, really.
And that feasibility is so interesting. I mean, even with some of the marketing clients I help out with, and they come up with an idea, and then you've got what does it take to get that implemented? You know, what's it going to cost? Can we reasonably expect that to bring a return? So much of the time, in my experience anyway, no way in hell are you getting return of this idea. And we, you know, you're just spending 20 minutes fleshing it out. Yep. With the actual step by step that this would take to actually, you know, for in your example, what's that step by step that would take to get a stubby holder in someone's hand? You know, just getting it to your office is going to be a bit. Then, okay, now we've got to
So and then who are you going to distribute them to?
Yeah. Who gets one? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. How are you going to know? Is it just going to be a useful thing for people to keep their beer cold, or is someone actually going to then, sign up because they've got a CoverCard stubby holder? I mean, it's, and that is one of the challenges that we have is, within our team we've got, referring to one person I won't name, but particularly innovative, but what's the practical steps of actually doing that? And so, we have to. But again, that person comes up with some absolute gems as well that are so important in things that we've done to date. But other times not so. But I mean that's the job of the CEO, right? Is to actually pick through that stuff and say, hang on, that's a really good one. We should be focusing our attention on that, and that let's put that on the let's definitely not do that, or let's put that on the possible list. You've got to be able to run it like that. I think.
Yeah. And I've found too, I'm just thinking about it now, that a few businesses I've seen anyway who try and be too generous and too, I don't know if generous is the right word, but start, get involved with charities and blah, blah, blah too early when they can't really support it, and they still really do need a return from everything they do. Yeah, that can come back to sting you, because you can get involved and do all this donating and stuff, and then you kind of look like a bit of a tool once sorry guys, we can't do this anymore. I think it's probably better just not to do it in the first place.
Yeah. You need to be massively, I think, strategic about that and be realistic. I mean, people there'll always be opportunities to help people, and you want to help people along the way. But I mean, if you don't have a number one, laser-like focus on whatever it is that's driving your business, then you'll get drawn in so many different directions. I mean, charities are great, really important thing to support, but you can get massively distracted by things like that, and things that seem like a small piece can end up being days and days of work, and you're like, man, how's my business going? You know what I mean? So yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's with marketing campaigns and that as well. Like you want to do this campaign. Okay, we've got to get that designed. We've got to get who's going to design it, how long it's going to take them, how much it's going to cost, how are we going to put it in front of people? No one's going to see it. Okay, we're going to have to pay for advertising.
Yeah. Oh, look, Jack, and that's where this calling strategy that we've implemented. Like, there's none of that crap, right? It's just it's literally there's a potential customer. We're talking to them.
Yeah.
Like, there's no do we need to, what's the advert look like to get them interested, and how are we going to target it to them and all of that? It's like, there's someone that's a potential user. Yeah. Let's talk to them.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. All right, Matt, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate you being part of the podcast.
Yeah, no worries.
Where's some places we can find you and CoverCard?
Okay, so www.covercard.com.au is our website. I'm on Twitter. CoverCard's on Twitter, which is cover_card, and I'm on Twitter at Matty Tomlins, which is MATTYTOMLINS. There's a couple of ways to get in touch, or you can email me if you want. matt.tomlins@covercard.com.au, Matt with a double T, Tomlins TOMLINS at covercard.com.au. So happy to for people to reach out, and just don't be a charity, I think is the sort of the message, isn't it?
I would say don't reach out and say, can I have a stubby holder?
Yeah, that's it. Oh, look, if you're going to sign up, maybe, but we'll see.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Matt. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries, Jack. Cheers, mate. Thanks.